I see Red Road and then I sing it like Night Moves by Bob Seger. Walking down a red road.
Every time I watch Red Road, it reminds me of why I don't miss Scotland.
It reminds me of how I do, because all the junkies are so nice to you, typically.
No, they're not. They just stab
Talk
you
about how big my boobs are, and they're just so pleasant. It's nice.
Oh, look at those jugs. I remember that.
Yeah, me too.
Hated it so much.
I like it when people are nice to me.
Okay, so we're recording. Yeah, I mean, the only other person that hates doing this as much as me is the dog.
Yeah.
Joking. I'm hilarious. Why would I want to become the absence of anyone's life with this quality of humor?
You need to be quiet because a woman's about to talk.
Yeah.
Hush up, man.
Okay. The patriarchy still exists. You know that, right?
Not in this house. Shut your hole.
Yeah, I wish I could make a joke about it, but that's just 100% true. Right, carry on. It's your right.
Thank you.
5, 4.
I don't need a countdown.
Okay.
Well, hello there. Welcome to On the Beat, the podcast that uncovers full frontal male nudity in cinema. My name is Laura, and I am joined by my co-host, Ryan.
Hello.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
Thank you for being quiet while I introduce the podcast.
Yeah, I wasn't quiet earlier. I might keep most of that stuff in.
Great.
So...
I'm very excited to talk about the 2006 psychological thriller Red Road, a film that I've heard about, a film that I had not seen until we watched it for the podcast, a film you've seen several times, and a film, I gotta be honest, I loved.
Yes. I'm trying to think of, like, there are maybe a handful of nice films set in Scotland. I think
this
all
is
the
one
ones
of them. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay,
I mean,
sorry.
as films go, like this one's no. I mean, I don't know. You're not at any point going to see in the Universal version of Red Road, Kate Dickie taking a condom that's full of semen and then inserting it into her vagina.
Like as a ride?
Yeah, I mean, probably not. Like, if it was, I meant like the Universal rated film, like as in like it was like the Disneyfied version.
Oh, I thought you meant like
No, there's
an
not
amusement park ride.
where they give you a used condom and it's like, right,
Yeah.
this is the next part of your.
I'm wondering how you could make that into some sort of
You need to convince
thrilling amusement.
You need to convince the staff member in front of you who's dressed as a policeman that you've been raped, so the rape allegation goes through. Is that the Universal ride?
I think of it more as perhaps an escape room where you have to look at the CCTV cameras and you got to pick the right one. Anyway, I should introduce what this movie's about.
That's the sort of ride that needs a height restriction.
Yeah. This would be a house at Halloween Horror Nights, perhaps.
It would be fucking terrifying. I mean, to be honest, there should be a horror house that is just set in Scotland.
Yeah.
Really, because I mean, if you take this with anything of like a grain of salt, the thing is, like, it's so, like, when we were watching this film, it's so instantly recognizable because everyone comes up to me and goes, "Scotland's very pretty," and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I've lived there. Like, it's terrifying.
It is, but it's also gorgeous if you leave the city and there's no people around.
Yeah, but we've also done a fine job of like fucking up the countryside as well, sticking up all those flats, like, you know, like the Red Road flats that we see in this movie, that are kind of just a blight on the landscape, and that's kind of one of the reasons why they were torn down eventually. So
let me just run through our cast for this beautiful film. I love this movie. It stars Kate Dickie as Jackie, Tony Curran as Clyde Henderson, Martin Compston as Stevie, Natalie Press as April, and Paul Higgins as Avery. And this is directed by Andrea Arnold. And this is the first time, but probably not the last time we will be speaking about her.
Okay.
So the synopsis for this film that I pulled from Letterboxd is: Jackie is a CCTV operator. Each day, she watches over a small part of the world, protecting the people living their lives under her gaze. One day, a man shows his face on her monitor. A man she thought she would never see again. A man she hoped never to see again. Now, she has no choice and is compelled to confront him.
Okay. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit overlong.
It's overlong and actually tells too much, and I didn't read the synopsis until towards the end of the movie, actually.
Yeah.
And I go, oh.
The film does a good job of, like, spoon-feeding you bits of information when you need them. It makes what obviously happens or, like, pervades certain moments even more horrific when they do happen.
I felt like I was missing bits of information. I kept asking you, wait, who is this man? What has he done? He seems like a really nice guy. And you go, he's not. I go, he's like a good-looking dude, and he knows how to take care of a woman. So I think he seems okay. I want to just point out in the beginning of this episode that if you haven't seen this movie, you should. You can find it streaming. It's so good, and there's so much of it that is so incredibly surprising that you wouldn't expect. That we will spoil hard. So do yourself a favor and a treat, and if you haven't watched it already, just don't listen to this and watch it.
You should, as a rule, now that we're almost 60 episodes into this podcast series, you should know by now not to watch the movie until you've listened to the episode. We've learned our lesson. We've stopped like doing current films that were kind of new out and stuff like that because, yeah, man. Well, for one reason, no one would watch them because they'd have to go see the film, then listen to the episode and stuff like that. So with this, at least you can watch the film well before you listen to the episode. But
I'm
yes,
only
she's
saying
right.
it specifically for this film because I loved it so much and it was such a surprise. Every little thing that happened, I love this movie.
See,
it's like really incredibly messed up, but so endearing. But also horrible and fucked up. I loved every second of it.
I just don't know if I'd ever use the word endearing talking about this film.
I think it is, and we'll get into it.
And it's so incredibly dark.
You told me a million times before starting this that just strap in.
It's rough ride.
It's going to be a rough ride. Yeah,
it's a rough ride.
I thought it was lovely.
It's pretty. Jeez, it's really making me think about like who I've married, what I've married. Well, let's get into Andrea, because I don't think anyone who's familiar with her work will be at all surprised with the subject matter of some of her films. Some of her films they're kind of rough.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty rough. But we're talking about Andrea Arnold. Andrea Arnold, OBE. If anyone wasn't aware.
Wow.
Yeah, whatever. She's an English filmmaker. She was a former actor. She's been active since the 1980s. Let's say she first came to prominence as a filmmaker when she won the Academy Award for her short Wasp, and that was in 2005. And that effectively paved the way for Red Road, which came out in 2006, as effectively her directorial debut. But the one thing I will say, and this is quite impressive, and probably makes her slightly more impressive than some filmmakers of her ilk, certainly more so than Jane Campion,
oh my God.
is Red Road in 2006, Fish Tank in 2009, and American Honey in 2016 have all won the Grand Jury Prize at Cannes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so...
That's cool.
Yeah. Out of the pan, she's an interesting filmmaker. I've always enjoyed her stuff. I think her stuff's pretty cool. So other than that, she's also directed 4 episodes of the Amazon Prime series Transparent that was in 2014, or at least it debuted in 2014. I don't know if it's still ongoing. I didn't really watch any of it. But I think it was that
George Bluth in it, right?
Yeah, I was going to say it's that George Bluth TV show. Doesn't he play like a woman? Doesn't he play like a transgender woman?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she did direct all of the episodes of the HBO show Big Little Lies, which was 2017 to 2019. That's probably bigger than Transparent. I think that's a very popular show, Big Little Lies.
Honestly, haven't seen it, and I didn't realize that she directed that, and I'm going to watch it.
Yes. Like I say, I think her stuff's highly enjoyable, and it's riveting stuff. So let's go through her filmography from start to finish. Now, I've already listed pretty much like 60% of it. Her filmography is not extensive, but let's just kind of put it out there first. So she debuted with her original short, which was called Milk, in 1998. Which I always thought was weird because it also reminds me of a short film that's also called Milk that came out a few years either after or just before by a director called Peter Mackie Burns. And I don't know if we'll cover any of his work. I'm yet to see his other feature film that he's made recently. But Peter Mackie Burns was a tutor of mine when I was at university. So that's why I kind of brought him up. And he also has a short film that went and won, I think, is it the Gold Lion? It's like the Gold Lion at Berlinale, which was the short film award for that. But he had a film called Milk, and I just bring that up because Andrea Arnold has a short film called Milk that came out around about the same time. In 2001, she has another short called Dog. Then, obviously, Wasp comes out and wins the Academy Award. And then Red Road in 2006, Fish Tank in 2009, Wuthering Heights in 2011, followed by American Honey in 2016, Cow, which is a documentary from 2021, which I'm really interested in seeing, and then she has a new film coming out called Bird in 2024.
Cool.
So that will be interesting to see. And also I have down here as a small note, she did direct 4 episodes of I Love Dick Show in 2017, and I have no idea what that show is.
I Love Dick show, or a show called I Love Dick?
A show called I Love Dick. Oh dear. Yeah, so I Love Dick show.
Sounds like something I would like.
Maybe. It might just be a romantic comedy with a guy who's also called Richard.
I wonder if it's about Dick Van Dyke.
Maybe.
That seems outside of her scope of interest.
Chimney Chiroo, eh?
Jesus. I found out that this film was part of the advance party scheme, and it's something I was unfamiliar with up until this point. It is a concept of 3 films following a set of rules proposed by the executive directors who were Gillian Barry, Lone Scherfig, and Anders Thomas Jensen. And the concept of this came out of chats that were had between those executive producers and Lars von Trier, who, as we know, was a founding member of the Dogma 95 movement.
Yes, I met one of the founding members of the Dogma 95 movement when I was in Berlin for some seminars and stuff. I can't remember his name because that's almost, 20 years ago at this point?
Okay.
So, yes, but I am aware, and certainly Lars von Trier. If I think about the Dogma film movement, I think Lars von Trier for the most part, really. Because I think of like, The Idiots. Like, that's probably one of the biggest ones that came out of that. Right.
This is a jumping off point or an offshoot from that movement. The films that are in the advanced party scheme were meant to be made by different first-time directors and producers. So the executive producers created a list of characters and gave them backstories, which the 3 directors could use to build their own stories. The casting for all 3 of the films was to be done at the same time by each of the directors with the same characters and actors. So
that's why it says it's based on characters by these 2 individuals at the end of the film, right?
Correct.
Right, that's interesting.
So they all had to work together to build these worlds, these 3 directors. So Red Road was the first one, followed by Donkeys in 2010. That was directed by Morag McKinnon.
Yeah, I remember Donkeys. I've met Morag.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And the third one was meant to be done by Mikkel Norgard, but from what I've read, it is reportedly in development limbo. So it never or
Oh,
has not happened
that seems unlikely to happen at this stage.
at this point. Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll never get the full trio.
That's interesting.
Isn't that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it also to me, I mean, again, like you say it that way, and you talk about what was it called, the advanced party scheme or something?
Yeah. Advanced party.
Sounds like something you'd go to a town hall to fucking talk about with your county members.
It's not as cool as Dogma 95.
No, it kind of, it might not be that way, but also screams the amount of elitism that I faced when I was trying to make films and look for funding in the Scottish film industry. So it kind of just goes to show how kind of exclusionary that the system is over there by doing things like this. So
Yeah, I think from reading about it, Andrea Arnold felt excited kind of about the confines of the project, but then also when she said she was talking to kind of other writers and directors, she felt a bit like a sham. Like this is her, this was her directorial debut for feature.
yeah, also an incredibly restrictive directorial feature. Certainly something like this that looks like it was shot on digital. It has a very low budget feel, but also I kind of think it adds to its appeal.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it feels incredibly restrictive. I didn't realize that this was the case, and I thought it was from an original story, but that just feels like there's a big difference between, I think, putting restrictive boundaries on a creative so that you get the best results, as opposed to the creative putting those restrictions on themselves in order to get the best results. So for me, I feel like it's a kind of weird imbalance when you kind of speak to me about how this is a project that's been kind of engineered by a couple of executives and being followed through by a couple of other directors. I feel like you kind of get lost a little bit in the fog of it all.
They had ways of changing it around a little bit because when they were working together on these stories, because the three directors worked together, and Andrea realized she needed 2 more characters, so they had to bring it up in the meeting with the producers, and they said, well, the only way you can have 2 more characters is if the other 2 directors agree and add those same characters into their films.
I mean, the hoops you'll jump through for film funding, that just sounds like a bit of a nightmare. But also, this film was developed as part of the Sundance Institute as well. Mm-hmm. So I don't really like that. I feel like it requires further reading. So I'm kind of wondering, because certainly my experience with like the Sundance Institute and the directors and stuff who have gone through the Sundance Institute is that they go there with the prospect of improving their work and getting real on-industry insight from in-industry insiders and directors, producers and stuff to make better films. So they're basically taking the scripts that they have. I think Tarantino's a really good example, and I think he has some, give or take, I think, his early work is pretty, pretty impressive. When he took Reservoir Dogs to the Sundance Institute, they definitely improved his work far more for the better. So I am slightly, I'm confused and I'm concerned just with kind of how this film comes to be. And I mean, to be fair, to be honest, only knowing that stuff now, and I've only seen the film a couple of times, I don't think that stuff really affects it that much. It's still a pretty impressive film with all of those restrictions that have been put on it. And certainly it's the most successful out of the bunch that got made, i.e. the 2 that got made out of the 3 filmmakers that were picked. So
right.
So I don't really know. I think that's interesting. I just don't know if I'm there's kind of nefarious undercurrent about it where I'm just like, why can't you just fund the films that you write and you're like, this has some level of commercial or cultural appeal? which I find odd because it really doesn't paint Scotland in a fantastic light, this film. So I do kind of wonder about like the cultural appeal of it. But yeah,
I don't know.
it's odd. It's odd. It's an odd scheme that I feel like it is. So
They had some guidelines. I'm sure there were more than this, but it was a 6 week shoot in Scotland. They had a list of 7 characters, and let's see. Oh, it was $1 million budget.
I mean, $1 million, or well, is that $1 million or £1 million?
It said $1 million.
So it's probably less than that then. Probably a fair amount less than £1 million. Okay.
Seems weird that it wouldn't be pounds since they all agreed that it would be shot in Glasgow, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm surprised that like, and not to kind of put down, it seems like a Scots initiative. So why wouldn't they grab from the pool of potential filmmakers that were already residing in Scotland as opposed to having to grab people from England to make films in Scotland?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that either. I'm not sure how they were picked. I know that Andrea Arnold was not familiar with Glasgow at all when she shot this film and when she planned it.
I mean, it doesn't show. I mean, you can certainly take some of the more industrial cities up in the north of England and transpose that to Glasgow. Glasgow's very much of the same sort of ilk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder about these initiatives, and certainly Red Road, Red Road got a fair amount of buzz. I was in college at the time, when I was studying in Edinburgh. This is before I went to university, but yeah, it was getting a fair amount of buzz because you had like an Oscar winner at the helm of this movie, and it was utilizing a lot of the the current Scottish talent and stuff like that, and it was a lot kind of darker and things. But I think the problem was that it's kind of following the same kind of stereotypical and kind of thematical ideas that we were seeing in Scots film at the time as well, where it's all, it's like Small Faces, it's like Train Spotting, like it's relatively quite dour and it's quite grey, and it's, some of it has a little bit of a sense of humour, but for the most part, like it feels like inherently quite violent, and it's urbanized, and everyone's impoverished, and everyone's upset and sad and grumpy. So
is it because they keep getting English directors to go up to Scotland and shoot films?
I don't know. I'm just
because most of the ones that we have covered that are set in Scotland are directed by English directors.
They are, but they're also written by, there's like Scottish writers. John Hodge is a Scottish writer.
Yeah.
So he has he was the best person at the time to adapt Irvine Welsh's stuff. And, I do think that, let's take Irvine Welsh as an example, like, that material is incredibly dark and it's unforgiving, but there is a dark humour about it, which I think is very innate to just being a Scotsman, being a Scots person and living in Scotland, is having a sense of, I guess, gallows humour. And when I was writing the TV show that was going to be set in Scotland, that was for better or for worse, a comedy drama that, really reflected the job as it was, and that was just the way that you deal with it. So
there were parts of this film that I thought were really funny.
Yeah, there's some humor in this, and I feel like that's kind of an innate ability of being someone from Scotland, is that you're kind of surrounded by, a kind of an injection of humor into effectively what could be perceived as like these relatively quite traumatic moments, or at least that's kind of how I feel I've always approached these things that have happened in my life. It's very relatable.
I think that is a great way to jump into this bad boy.
Okay.
Before we do, I was mentioning to you earlier that I recognized Kate Dickie while we were watching the film, and I go, what do I know her from? And I realized that she was Lysa Arryn in Game of Thrones, and I felt good about remembering that.
Probably her most well-known role, other than probably Red Road. There is probably other things that she's in, but it kind of escapes me just now. And I mean, I can have a little look on my phone and see if there's anything else of note. But
There's the two main characters in this film, or the actors, are familiar to me. You know, Kate Dickie and then Tony Curran, who we all know from the third installment of the Big Mama's House trilogy.
What? What's he doing?
Know.
What's he up to?
Because he's in such great things. You know, he's in Shallow Grave, he's in Gladiator, he's in the sequel to Underworld Evolution. He's in Miami Vice, he's in Outlaw King. You know, he's in some good stuff. I just wanted to bring up Big Mama's House because that's funny to me.
Okay, for Kate Dickie though, I mean, she's in The Witch. She's in The Last Jedi.
She's amazing in The Witch.
She's in The Northman. She's in The Green Knight. She's in Prometheus. She's in
Jesus.
Filth.
She's amazing.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other things.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't surprising, but it was.
I also don't want to compare her career to Tony Curran's either, because we've already mentioned. Oh wait, hold on, Tony Curran. So he's in Thor: The Dark World, Gladiator, X-Men First Class, Tintin, the Spielberg one, Blade 2. He's in Pearl Harbor, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He's also in a movie that I quite enjoy that I don't think anyone else really enjoyed, Midnight Meat Train.
I remember you watched that without me one day, and I was very upset. I would like to watch that,
if you want to watch it, I could quite easily watch that tonight. Directed by Ryuhu Kitamura, sorry, who
How long is that movie?
I think it's like an hour 40 minutes. Oh no, it's an hour and a half. Oh,
Perfect.
No. Okay, so 98 minutes. So it's about an hour and 8. But I mean,
I'll allow it.
Yeah, but you have to deal with Bradley Cooper.
Bradley Pooper,
because he's in it. He's in it for the entirety. So,
but it's Bradley Pooper from before he was wicked greasy. So I'll allow it.
I don't know. It's got Vinnie Jones in it, so I mean, I don't know who's complaining about that. Let's be perfectly honest.
We have got to talk about this movie.
We do.
I don't know where your notes start, but I don't start my notes until that very first sex scene in the van.
Oh,
That's
really?
when I don't have a lot of notes. I was just enjoying it, and I was just writing things that came to me.
I mean, we can kind of dance around a little bit. I mean, a lot of what it is like, I mean, quite a lot of my notes are like, oh my god, like, isn't Scotland fucking scary? Oh my god, what a shithole it is. Like, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, like, there's the underlying thing with like a lot of these council estates as well, is that, you know, and I think the film gets it right. And I've visited a few of these estates for like either filming projects or because like I knew people who lived there and things. And the same thing applies. Like, it is low budget housing, mostly council housing, and you're sharing it mostly with, most of the time it's with ex-cons, or just people who can't afford to move.
Now that's how they were when it got into like the 80s, 90s, and so forth. But when they were originally constructed, like specifically the Red Road flats, which are real, were constructed between 1964 and 1968, and it did provide more of an upper kind of class, not upper class, but, you know, a middle class housing. And people were finding it better than what they had access to before. So it was like an upgrade. But that particular building had a lot of problems, especially just those type of like block housing had a lot of problems because it did become more of a hotspot for...
It's just a breeding place for crime.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like antisocial crime. It was like disaffected youths. They were like throwing stuff from the roofs and burgling houses. That particular building also became a hotspot for suicides.
It's not unsurprising. But the thing is that they wouldn't put bars on the windows because then it becomes a fire hazard. Because those buildings and like in general, they can be death traps if a fire goes up. So,
well, there was a lot of controversy in this building. We need to talk about this movie, but I wrote notes about the building because there was controversy over the use of asbestos in the building. The architect who designed the building said, "Steel and asbestos operate as the collective that stabilizes Red Road and holds it together, albeit provisionally, as a viable, safe housing solution," which in 1977 caught fire and the structural integrity of the building was compromised.
Great.
Yes, it was
Great.
condemned in 2008 and was torn down between 2010 and 2015.
Yes, and think of all those folk who fucking died from asbestos poisoning or asbestos related illness before that
Yeah.
happened. Yeah, I will say though that the estate, at least that what they've chosen, because let's talk about they are a character in of themselves, really. I mean that estate has a pervading sense of threat and of a forebode.
It's so big, and it's such a statement,
Yeah.
kind of in the skyline, in this kind of, it's a modernist, brutalist building. So it's quite striking.
All of them, yeah, from even, certainly in Glasgow, Aberdeen, Dundee, Edinburgh, because, a lot of those, they've tried their best over the last, say, 10 or 15 years to really clean up those areas and try and make them lucrative. Because the thing is the minute you start cleaning up those areas and you start bringing in, say, more expensive housing, you bring in another, a different class of person, and then that effectively has a slight purifying element to the community. But yeah, I will say that like the buildings and just the way that the locations and stuff are characterized really add a nice. I say they add a really great, like they cast a real dark shadow over the story of this film.
Yeah.
And certainly that is very much what you get, is a very dark and unforgiving landscape that the film is depicting here. But it's very much a kind of mystery story where Kate Dickie, who plays Jackie, is the CCTV operator, and she spends her time watching people on a day-to-day basis, obviously reporting on crimes and stuff, more importantly. But
Because she always watches that particular area. That's her area, right? This is the Red Road.
They've all been assigned districts, so they're obviously not being jumped about and stuff too much.
So I guess you get to know your area pretty well and your characters.
Yeah. So you'll see the same people walking around and stuff like that. So she'll see, she sees an older man who's got like a dog who's a little bit poorly. She'll see a cleaner that works in the same building every time, and see kind of her story as like this kind of, all these like silent experiences. And the thing is that she knows them, but they have no idea who she is.
Very voyeuristic.
Yeah.
In terms of how that is set up.
And I guess there's a kind of
getting like these relationships almost with these people, and they will never know who she is.
No. And this is a weird kind of counterpoint.
Until she inserts herself into their lives.
I guess, yes. But this is a weird kind of counterpoint to the film that we covered previously, where I feel like this is so much more of a kind of slightly more accurate and a slightly more interesting perspective of someone who spends their time watching you. I wouldn't say necessarily that she's a voyeur.
It is her job.
But it is her job to watch people and to keep people safe. But the main thing I would also say is that she's using her role to give her an advantage into this ploy that she's hatching, that we're kind of slowly being introduced to over the course of the story.
Very slowly.
It's a very slow.
You do not know why she's doing this until the end of the film.
Pretty much.
You get hints.
I am also kind of wondering how many times over the course of the 60-something episodes that we've done can I say Cinema Verité? I wonder.
We should start counting. Or maybe we'll have someone who listens to the podcast do it for us.
Unless someone had their Cinema Verité bingo card out. Is Ryan going to say it this time?
Well, you've already said it twice, so...
I have.
Tell me more.
There's a real kind of... I can admire the film's simplicity. Certainly like the title design, the way the film is shot, the general style of it. It's very much, it's all shot handheld. It's all relatively quite close on kind of short lenses. It feels like very pure filmmaking, but it also feels like it's a film that's been made very fast and certainly on a budget in very real locations with very real people for the most part. So it does have that going for it, in that it does feel very real because it feels quite tangible, which also kind of adds to the level of suspense in it, which is
Yes.
that's kind of building as the film goes on.
Yeah, every time she levels up this situation that she's in, it had me screaming. I was very nervous about her choices.
Yes, yes, but she does have a boyfriend when we first meet him, which is played by Paul Higgins, and you'll remember Paul Higgins from The Thick of It. He plays he plays the scarier version of Tucker,
Right.
a character called Jamie MacDonald, who they're more scared of than obviously Peter Capaldi's character in that thing. But Evie and Jackie are shagging.
Yeah, that was the first thing I wrote. I go, sex scene in the van, broad daylight, so slow, cute dog roaming free. So that was the slowest, most awful sex scene I've ever seen in a closed car. It was disgusting. That guy was pumping like at a quarter speed of what he should have been at, and then he just finishes. And doesn't he ask her if she finished? She's like, yeah, earlier.
Yeah,
How?
she did it earlier.
Lies.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's more of an insult than anything else. But what this film does do, and I think the film does a very good job of, is making sure that you know exactly why there are spent condoms everywhere in Scotland.
Yeah, there really are. In real life, there are just
Condoms
condoms
everywhere.
on the ground, in the grass, just everywhere. In phone booths, especially.
Yes.
Tons. There's just condoms. If
Left,
you
right,
open a
and
phone
center.
booth in Scotland, there's a condom in it.
Yeah, probably. And,
100%.
Yeah, and certainly if it's on the phone receiver, that's seen as like that's a special moment. You don't use the phone, obviously. Like, you don't touch the condom.
You don't touch a phone booth.
No,
It's a sex booth.
of course not. Well, you shouldn't be using the phone booths anymore. Well, obviously, no one uses a phone booth anymore for anything other than sexy time.
Ugh.
But
Gross.
here, look, at least they're all being safe.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Good for them.
I'd rather step on a used condom than
Maybe don't go there.
no, maybe not. No, I did think I was gonna say like human shit, but then I'm also like, but then you've got like semen on your shoe. No, I'm good.
I'd rather probably have semen on my shoe than poo, because you could wash that off easier than poo. The poo will get stuck all in the grooves.
It's really
Of your
yeah.
shoe.
I mean, I guess you can rinse it off.
I'd rather step in cum than a lot of things.
Oh, yeah, I don't
Gum.
know. That is a real head scratcher. I'm not gonna lie.
You don't agree?
I don't know. I feel like I've brought poo and semen into this
Ice cream,
account.
I wouldn't want to step on that.
Okay, that's much better though. I think ice cream is better.
'Cause it's
Biscuit,
sticky.
chocolate biscuit. Yeah, I was thinking like a slice of pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you step
then
on that.
you would slip and fall probably.
Probably.
I don't know if you would slip in cum.
Okay, well it's still better than the used.
You would slip on the condom
the
though as
used
well, so that's
Johnny.
also dangerous.
You would.
But it's in the phone booth. You don't have to worry about it, usually.
Anyway, Jackie's life continues on as this spiraling story continues, in that she's watching this man, Tony Curran, who she knows exactly who he is. We're just not really privy to exactly what he's done.
We just know
there
he's
is a
an
newspaper. There is kind of other
ex-con.
things. He is an ex-con.
Don't know what he did.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure what he did. And I
He's
mean,
been released. And she doesn't like it.
she's not happy, and she's looking to fix that.
You don't really get any much of an intel into her life as much, only these little sprinklings. She's not close to her family. You
No.
kind of get a hint that her husband is gone, but you don't really know if he's gone or if he's perished.
But she's still wearing a ring.
She's
so
still
it's
wearing a
kind
ring,
of-
so
yeah.
but you don't exactly know what is happening. But she
No.
becomes obsessed with this gentleman.
Yes, who we now know as his name is Clyde Henderson.
Yeah.
But she continues to watch him, and Clyde is hanging out with two younger folk, a guy called Stevie, which is Martin Compston, and Natalie Press, who plays April. And they live in the same flat on the Red Road estate, but they're kind of like a trio, like they hang out with each other. But certainly, like, you know, there's schemy stuff going on, and I say schemy stuff, I'm like, at one point, Tony Curran, like, Clyde brings back, like, a giant log, from somewhere, and he's like dragging it into the stairwell and stuff like that. And we find out later why he's brought a log in, but I'm just like,
'cause he's a good guy.
I mean, it's like, I'm just like, oh, fucking hell. Like, here we are. Like, I'm back home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing this shite.
Well, he's a van that's a locksmith, and
it looks like it's just a blue van, and they've painted on the side of it 24-hour locksmiths with fucking Clyde's number on the side, and I'm just like, they're looking to rob houses. That's basically what that means. They're just going to start robbing houses. He looks like he's painted on that thing on the side of his car.
But he doesn't.
No, he doesn't.
He's a good guy.
No, well, we do find out later, Stevie's okay at breaking into people's houses. Like, for whatever reason, Stevie's able to do
he's
it.
Completely unhinged, bad boy.
But Stevie's mental. Yeah, Stevie's off his head. But yeah, it's just so rough, so unbelievably rough.
Well, she escalates this. The next thing I have written is how she shows up at a party in their flat.
Terrifying.
I was freaking out because she just has a bag with some bottles in it, you know, to drink, to bring to the party. But when she goes into the flats, she gets into the elevator, she ends up in the elevator with Stevie and April, who she hasn't met yet, but she's seen on the cameras. Am I wrong?
Well, we're not sure what she's after.
You don't know what she's doing. I didn't realize she was going to the party.
But she goes to the party.
She says to Stevie, she's like, oh yeah, I know Clyde. And they're like, oh, okay.
All you know, they're all lies, like where they met and stuff. And the thing is like, Stevie's asking these probing questions, and he doesn't believe her. He does not trust her in the slightest. But there's this overarching sense of, like, no one believes her, and I'm just waiting for the moment where they're like, he's pretending to be nice. Because this has happened to me, is like, they pretend to be nice to you, and then they fucking pounce on you. And, like, Stevie's a wee, you know, he's a wee scheming bastard. Like, he steals her purse. He's derogatory towards her. He's asking her all these questions. He doesn't believe her.
Well, that's
and I'm just
fair.
like, well, she's putting herself into this potentially very dangerous situation. And I've been at parties that look like that, where someone just like pulls a fucking dog out of their jacket and the dog's running around.
Blasting Oasis.
And blasting fucking
and you go,
Oasis.
Oh, no.
I'm like,
I gotta get out of here.
It's like, I better put down my Bud Light. Like, I need to go.
Morning glory.
If there's anything like that'll ever make me think about fucking Scotland, is like someone's there with a bowl cut, and he's like rocking his shoulders back and forth, and he's listening to fucking Oasis, because Oasis is their favourite. It's their favourite band of all fucking time. Yeah, welcome to Scotland.
That party didn't seem like a bad party, but it made me
What sort of parties have you been to?
I don't know. Everyone's like dancing and singing, and there's drinks, and there's a little dog.
Rough as fuck.
Sign me up.
Yeah, okay.
I like it when everyone's dancing.
Oof.
But she goes to dance and ends up dancing with Clyde. I
Yeah.
couldn't. I forget that she saw him earlier when she was stalking him in a cafe, and he saw her there.
50 pence for a cup of tea, though, that's no bad.
Yeah, she didn't
I
even
would take
finish her
50
tea.
pence. She didn't finish it, no, because she was incensed.
She was
But-
hard stalking.
But Clyde was there because he knew the lassie who was working there, because we'd seen Jackie watching on the CCTV Clyde shagging her outside, and this was another moment where another discarded condom just ends up in the grass somewhere. But we saw her, and it's I don't know, what was one of her lines?
Are you going to say it in that voice?
Yeah, the exact way that she fucking says it. So she brings over like a breakfast or something to Clyde, and she just goes, "Then they say I'm no nice to you, eh?" And I'm no laughing at her. Like, I've met plenty of folk who talk like that over the years and stuff like that, but I was just like, "How you doing, pal?" Same thing. But yeah, he's a womanizer, this Clyde. Like, he's good with the ladies, and that's kind of his reputation, is that he kind of goes around like shagging. So
Yeah.
that's kind of his thing. But you know, like I say, the information is being spoon fed to us, so it's kind of like, I'm like, no, he's not a nice guy. You're like, oh, he's lovely, and I'm like, no, that's what they're all like in Scotland. Sorry, but like, you know, they'll be your best friend, and then they'll stab you in the fucking back. You know,
he's charming for a ginger, right?
Yeah, Stevie says that as well. He's charming for a ginger, eh? No, he says he's charming for a ginger cunt, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is.
So he is. Well, I mean, he is, but he is also trying. It's like
he's a crimbo. That's what I wrote down.
It's just
he's a criminal and a bimbo.
It's just like the setting, like the atmosphere, like where we are and how impoverished it is, and like, you know, there's a sequence where, you know, a poor wee girl gets stabbed and stuff, and she's watching it on the CCTV and things. So like, you know, you're surrounded, you know, by criminality, you know, like that's all it is. Like, there's a lot of horrible things going on, so you're always slightly on edge. And anyone who's ever found themselves, like, I guess, like, you know, in the US, if you walk through the hood, or if you end up on one of these fucking estates back in Scotland or England, you're immediately on edge because you know you're unwelcome. So this is a kind of...
If you're in... Oh, and I'm not going to say it. I don't want to make anyone mad.
It's like this, this pervading sense that, like, you don't belong there. Like, you have nothing to do with this place, and certainly you'll be told otherwise if you do end up sitting there. So, you know, it's she ends up going to the Broomfield,
yes.
The Broomfield pub. I mean, for all honesty,
out of work. Yeah. She cuts out of work early to do it as well. She goes, "Oh, I don't feel well."
Because she's watching Clyde on the video.
Yeah, and she sees them go into that pub.
I mean, to be honest, I would do what she's doing for a pint of tenants, honestly.
It looked great.
I would, yeah, a nice cold pint. The barman seemed nice enough.
So nice.
Yeah,
it looked like a nice place to have a drink.
It's one of those. It's like it's like what one of our friends calls it, like a Darrow pub. Like it is.
Yeah.
There was a place no far from where you used to live called the Scotsman.
Absolutely.
And there's another place a little bit further up from it in Edinburgh anyway. It was called the Grapes. I went into the Grapes once, and it was like it was fucking terrible. No music on, nothing. Like me, my pal, and a couple of old men who'd been there since midday, and this was 8:00 at night, and it was it's rough. Like you know you're no welcome. You know you're not fucking welcome.
When we walked in, you weren't there that night, but when we walked into the Scotsman, it was like a record scratch.
Yeah.
Everyone stopped in sequence, all at once, turned and stared at us, all shaved heads, all with a pint in their hands, and just stared at us. And I thought, I would rather be anywhere else right now. I just wanted a drink.
The thing is, those places they're few and far between now, and I feel like they're a dying breed. Like the old boozer, you know?
Yeah.
And certainly, like, you will get like that type of place, but it's like in lieu of the fact that they're modernized to a degree, you know? They don't have the same, like, it's like, oh, we haven't changed the pipes in like 50 years, you know, that sort of thing.
There's a lot of places around in Orlando that are getting kind of fixed up or gentrified that aren't as frightening as they used to be, which is a bit of a shame in a way.
It is a bit of a shame. Some of them are still slightly frightening. You don't go into the biker bars.
No, but sometimes you
welcome
can.
in a biker bar,
yeah.
Which is weird. But yeah, I feel like I don't know. I feel like
I went to that bar in Daytona Beach where, the serial killer.
Oh, the Eileen Wuornos bar?
Eileen Wuornos bar. Oof. And I think it's called The Last Resort.
It's called The Last Resort,
and they have just a cooler of of bottles and cans. And when we walked in there, they were nice to us, opened us up a beer, gave us like a bumper sticker. And then there was a gentleman at the end of the bar that said that, oh, if you were in here yesterday, you would have seen a guy get stabbed.
Yeah.
And we were there at maybe 1 PM. So luckily it wasn't teeming with criminals or anything.
I mean, you still find, I remember there was a pub down on, near Haymarket. It was called the Spider's Web, and I don't know if it's the same place now.
Oh my gosh, what a name.
But yeah, that was a place where I saw a woman getting the shit kicked out of her by her husband at the bar.
Oh my God.
And then the police turned up. So it does happen. A lot of stuff happens.
Well, there's also a fight at the... What was this bar called again?
The Broomfield.
The Broomfield.
Welcome to the Broomfield.
That Clyde breaks up between Stevie and apparently Stevie's father. Right? Because that was his dad.
Well, the thing is, all of those pubs all look like that. Like, all of those out in, like, near estate pubs, they all look like that, with, like, the big metal shutters on. They've got no windows like that, so they all look like that.
Yeah.
They're the ones that they tend to replicate for the bars here in Florida that are meant to be, like, old English pubs, you know, that sort of thing. They all look like that.
Yeah.
And the pints are probably about as shite.
Well, this is when it starts to get a little bit sexy.
It's leading in towards what becomes the dick scene, guys.
Here we
I know
are.
it's taken us a while, but we're getting there.
So this is quite a scene. When this starts ramping up, a smile just came over my face. So they go back to Clyde and Stevie's place.
Just so you know, obviously, Stevie has had a fight with his dad in the bar, but Clyde and Jackie have been chatting at the bar, and Jackie's playing, like, effectively, she's a bit standoffish, right? But to be fair, that's not unheard of for probably lassies going into bars like this. They would be a little bit defensive.
Well, she's playing
no
a game,
there.
and she's being hard to get, but she knows exactly what she wants to do. So, I mean, she's been stalking him, showing up at his place, going to his parties, watching his every move, and obviously she knows where he is, and she knows exactly what she's doing.
Well,
we don't know.
Jackie does make the mistake of asking him what's on Clyde's mind, and Clyde goes, "I'm wondering what your cunt tastes like."
I started clapping, I think, when that happened. I was like, I'm fucking so strapped in right now. Let's go. See, I told you he was a good guy. He's a nice guy.
If anyone
He knows how to talk to a lady.
If anyone in Scotland came up to you at any point and said that to you...
Yeah, but he's not like raw dogging that comment. She's been following him around. He's seen her a bunch of times. He didn't walk up to a stranger and say that. He's been...
Is it because he says it with a level of charm?
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't even test that thing here. Actually, I couldn't get away with saying it, because I'd be
you shouldn't.
Weird. No.
But he can.
With poo thumb.
He had one of those like working man's thumbs that was half a black on his fingernail because it's obviously gonna fall off, and he was
like he jammed it in a car door or something.
Yeah. I mean, he uses that thumb to do things in this film that I did not appreciate.
Yeah, he did have well, that thumb goes somewhere. Anyway, we end up back at their place. And Stevie's sleeping and stuff, and then they end up having a drink in Clyde's room.
From that bottle of whiskey she brought over when she was creeping.
It's, that's when she gets her wallet stolen and stuff like that. It's when you see the inside of the flat, because they've got like one of those like electric like convection like heaters with like the orange glowing bars on them, and like
space heater. Yeah,
that's their only heating. But then also, you know, it's very dark. There's not a lot of lights and stuff either. There's
nighttime.
There's a distinct look at like the film. Like there's a lot of kind of like flashes of color, like yellows, reds, blues, yellow. Like there's a lot of like nice primary color use in the film as well, because for the most part, it's pretty dreary looking. But certainly by the time we get into the bedroom, there's this nice conversation where they're talking about there's the foxes. And anyone who's familiar with like Edinburgh or Glasgow or anything like that, there's foxes everywhere.
Yeah, in London as well. They're
Yeah.
so cute, and they hang out outside the pubs and looking for snacks.
Loud, so fucking loud.
Yeah.
One of my favorite memories, and I don't know if this is anything I've ever told you before, but I used to smoke, and I went outside to have a cigarette, and I was sitting on my steps, and probably less than 4 feet away from where I was sitting, this little fox came walking down the path, stopped and looked at me, and then walked onwards.
Adorable.
There was a fox nest maybe 20 seconds up the road from where I used to live.
They're so cute.
They are very cute. I'd also say to you, don't go to pet them, and certainly don't do what somebody that I once knew did before with a badger, and decided to go into their burrow hole, and then ended up getting bitten. They ended up they had to go on like a rabies. They had to go on like a rabies medication program thing for like months. So
that's what you get for being an idiot.
Yeah, very, very silly. Anyway, back to the sex.
Back to the cunnilingus.
Yeah, I've got a lot of I've written it beat for beat here.
You did? Okay, well, I only have cunnilingus and then right to it.
Well, let's do this differently then.
Okay.
Let's see how. Let's do the Laura examination of like, let's get the female perspective on some of these lines, because I've only got Tony Curran's lines here. I've only got Clyde's lines here.
You know I'm gonna like them, so.
Wait,
but this is hold on. The lines that he says, is it leading up to the sex part?
Yes.
Okay, so before that, I want to talk about when he goes downtown.
But this is before that happens.
Okay.
So he goes, "You have very nice breasts."
10 out of 10.
Okay, good.
Love.
Well, you're a sexy fucking bitch.
Oh, 11 out of 10.
And then he starts licking those nips. Remember that?
Yes. I would say 8 out of 10, if not for that thumb.
Okay, that's good. And then, obviously, that's when he goes down on her after that.
So, that... Okay. You guys, it's getting heated, all right? This whole... And I don't know how...
Getting all hot and bothered in here.
Kudos to everyone involved. Tony Curran was only there one day for the scene, no rehearsals, and he got it fucking taken care of. He gets her trousers off. She rips off her shirt, right? He gets right in there. And he's just looking up at her. He's going to town. And apparently, I'm getting really loud. My apologies. So that...
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I got to turn the fan on. So that whole going downtown cunnilingus scene, what they did to kind of achieve it, because it looks like he's going at it, right?
Oh, there's an insane amount of excruciating detail.
A lot of noise.
It looks exactly what you think it would.
Yes, and you get that female POV, again, 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So what they did is they put half a pear in between her legs.
What?
Yes. A pear. And then he just went to town on that pear. He just went for it.
That's insane.
And then just angled the camera just right. And that's how you get that.
Just half a pear.
Half a pear.
But then it's like, isn't it resting on her vagina?
Yeah. It's probably set in there. Like, yeah.
There's no way that he's also, like, getting a wee bit.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he's probably kissing some fanny.
I was thinking about, you could get a big pear. She's not a big girl. You could probably put a decent sized pear there and achieve that. But
Just scream at the props guys like, we need a big pair.
I mean, you don't have
Go to the
intimacy
Tesco, get ourselves
coordinators
a... No.
at this time, and you are
Certainly no
on
at
a
this
one-day
budget,
shoot
no.
with a $1 million
Yeah.
budget. She's probably just like, it's fine.
I don't know. I mean, they deal with it. I mean, you don't know the pairs there. And
No.
obviously it's, you want to try and mitigate as much tongue to vagina contact as possible. Because I think at least certainly now, like, they use kind of like hidden pants and stuff.
Yeah.
So that it still looks like there's something there. But like, we've done things like Lust, Caution and stuff where it's like, that's a dick going in a vagina.
Yes.
So at least with this, like, they're cutting around it, they're angling it properly, but to say it was just a pear, I thought it was just like a kind of like fleshy sack you just kind of put down there and like a flesh balloon and you just give it a wee kiss.
From my research, it's a pear.
There you go. What a pear, they would say.
So we're coming up to it, and I know you have a couple lines that you want to say to me.
Of course.
But at around a minute, 26 and 40 seconds, we're getting into this moment.
Yes.
Drum roll. It's the dick scene. So after he's finished with that pear,
Yes.
he says a couple of things.
Well, she comes, doesn't she? She came.
She sure does.
She
because
comes.
this is a nice man. This is a good man.
He's sorting her out before he gets his goods.
So he's a gentleman.
Yeah, he is a gentleman. He's getting it seen to, and then he's going to get himself seen to. I mean, for most men, the foreplay is the best part.
I would agree with the ladies, probably.
Yeah.
Same.
I'm agreeing with the men as a man myself.
Wonderful.
Who mends it. Anyway, so like after he finishes up, he goes, "I want to fuck you." He goes, and then Jackie's like, "I want you to say it again."
Say it again.
Say it again. He's like, "I'm gonna fuck you."
And I start clapping again. Ladies and gentlemen, I start clapping again. And then this is where we see what can only be described as an erect penis.
Pretty much. He's getting a condom, he's ripping it open with his teeth, and he's going to put it on, and then we see what can only be described as, yes, an
Ladies
erect
and gentlemen,
penis.
a penis. And this is where the voyeurs in our last episode failed us, because that is what we needed to see.
I
Here
mean,
we are.
Technically, well, I will say this: it's not as on show as the erect penis in Under the Skin.
No.
Not by a long shot.
No.
It's covered by a hand.
Yes.
But you do see that shaft, but you don't see the head.
Yeah, all shaft, no head.
Yes.
All shaft, no tip. But it was striking because we don't get that very often. And especially these days, if you try to put an erect penis on screen in your film, you will get barred, banned. You're going to get an X, NC-17 rating, and good luck having your movie out there, which is stupid and ridiculous, but here we are.
But in the vein of, the honest side of the filmmaking, it's really in keeping with the general tone and griminess that the film has in general. Like, this entire sex scene is, like, very in keeping with the overall tone and style of the film as well.
For sure. Yeah, and in terms of honesty, 100%.
Yeah.
It is there.
But, we see it. It's not particularly pronounced. He's obviously got, half of it covered and stuff, to the point where, there was disputes at the time of whether or not it was actually his.
Correct. So in interviews, Tony Curran is deliberately vague when discussing it. And he said, quote, "Well, I guess you saw what you thought you saw." And he goes on to say, "It's like that scene in Fight Club where big penis flashes up on the screen and no one even notices. It was an erect penis, yes, but then again, it's a piece of art. It's not pornographic. If the audience think it's an erect penis, then that's a good thing. If you thought it was an erect penis, then that's exactly what it was. It wasn't a banana. Let's just say it's all down to the magic of cinema."
I mean, unless we have definitive proof otherwise, we just have to assume it was his. So,
Yeah. And Tony Kern's mom was sitting behind him at the screening of the film.
Lovely. Well, I mean, she's probably seen it before. Probably not erect, but she's probably seen it before.
She's 100% seen it before.
Yeah, she's probably seen it before. Because he was also in Rome.
Oh, well, Rome is don't even get me started on Rome. Fuck HBO. Fuck HBO and their prosthetic penises. What a bunch of liars.
But they finish having sex. It's very brief, I guess.
He gives her a little apology.
Gives her a little apology.
He's been in jail, you know.
He has been in jail, but
Instead of the touch of a
also,
woman.
yeah, I think, yeah, this is kind of what it was all leading up towards.
Yeah, everything starts coming together in an incredible series of events that is intriguing and wild and unexpected.
So she leaves the house, she leaves the bedroom, and obviously
Swipes that condom.
Swipes the condom, but Clyde's pretty pissed off, and he's just like, "You're only here for a fuck, all this stuff." And then she leaves. She goes into the bathroom, takes the semen out of the condom, and then inserts that semen into herself.
Squeezes it out into her hand like a
tube of toothpaste.
Yeah, and I was like, she's trying to have a baby. Which I'm like, it's not going to work like that. But I was wrong. Also, she had grabbed a rock off the street earlier, and I didn't know why. And then she takes the rock out of her pocket in the bathroom.
Smashes her face with it.
I, once again, was screaming. I did not know what she was doing, and then you yell, "She's gonna get him done for rape."
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, this is not good for Me Too.
They're gonna accuse him of rape.
Not good.
Not good. Yeah, not good for the Me Too movement.
No.
No. But yes.
Yeah. That was insane. And so she's kind of utilizing the CCTV cameras that she had been using to stalk Clyde.
Yeah.
She rips her shirt, rips her pants, runs out of the flat straight towards the CCTV camera.
Yeah.
So she's gathering her evidence, and then calls the police.
Yeah, aye. And then that was her plan all along, effectively. But the film isn't over from there. Effectively, like her getting him done for an attempted rape, she ends up dropping the charges, but she seems to have this strange moment of clarity. I mean, there's that horrible moment where she's looking at her old daughter's things and she like stuffs her clothes with other clothes to hold this effigy of her dead daughter.
Correct.
So what you do realize is that Clyde was driving under the influence and he crashed into a bus stop and effectively killed Jackie's husband and daughter at the same time, effectively ruining her life. And he did go to prison. And it'd been 10 years or so, and he's now been released. And she thought to herself that he shouldn't have been released, and so obviously made up the accusation of rape in the best possible way that she could have in order for him to stay in prison. But effectively, they're able to, I guess, like, there's a weird kind of reconciliation that happens.
Yes. And it's kind of incredible, the whole thing. It's as though she needed to do it. She needed to confront him and just, because she's never come to terms with the loss of her family. She's living in the same flat. Everything's kind of gone to shit. Her family life has gone to shit. And she's using this really horrible thing and this horrible scheme to come to terms with this horrible loss that she's endured. And luckily, she decided not to fully press charges against this man who did not rape her. But yeah, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah. And then I guess as everything kind of comes full circle, she's able to reconcile with the man who's effectively on the straight and narrow, and he's getting to know his own daughter that he's never met before, all this sorts of things. And she's able to reconnect with her family members, who are also, I think, the people that we meet at the end of that film are her dead husband's parents, so like her her parents-in-law technically, and then also she gets to see that like life moves on, and you're able to kind of she sees a man whose dog was poorly, who he had to put down, now has a new dog, and it's this
My
kind
heart was warmed.
It's this nice symbolic image of her being able to move on with her life. So, isn't that the way it goes? Accuse a man of rape.
Get your life back.
Get your life back.
I have one more thing that I wrote down that I didn't get to say yet. So in the initial outline for the rules of the film, the initial outline for this particular character, Jackie, is described as 34 years old, has lost her only brother, her husband, and their child. Habitually, she maintains a relationship with a married man, and she gets just enough intimacy to avoid shutting herself away from the world.
Right.
So I
So
kind of...
no, yeah, some of that stuff stayed, but the rest of it didn't.
Well, I'm sure maybe she lost her only brother, but they didn't write it into the screenplay.
Yeah, because it's kind of not needed at that point either. Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Again, strangely restrictive as well. And yeah, I don't know if like those level of story restrictions make the best story at the end of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think you already mentioned that this film won the jury prize at Cannes.
Yeah.
And special achievement by a British director at the BAFTA Film Awards, best screenplay at the BAFTA Scotland, and she won a bunch of things for this.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yes, great. Do you want to get into the ratings? Do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap up this amazing film?
I literally said everything I wanted to say.
Wonderful.
Other than there's a budgie in the film as well.
There is.
And the guy who owns the budgie says, "Oh, he just doesn't like women.
He doesn't like strangers.
Women's freak him out." I was like, "All right, okay, there you go." As for ratings, are we going with the penis scene first? Do you want to go first with
I will
the penis
go first.
scene?
In terms of visibility and context, I gave it a 2.
Yeah.
Because it's not there for long, but it does kind of hold and hinge on that shot for an extra beat or so. So it's not that really quick, blink and you'll miss it type of thing. I'm pretty sure you're going to see it. And within the context, it is 100% honest and makes sense to be there in terms of especially the balance between the nudity in the film, in a sex scene especially.
Yeah.
So you get the balance between Jackie and Clyde. He's putting on a condom. You see that occurring within this kind of insane, wild sex scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. And that is a 2. You just don't see it in full. It's, it's a full side, half side male nudity.
Jeez, oh, right. So I would also kind of add to that. I'd maybe give it like a 2.5 because we only see half of it. But contextually kind of tends to bump it up a little bit, I guess. So it stays at like a 2.5, but like, yeah, like you're right. It's, it does hold on there for a wee while and it does kind of work contextually. And I would be, again, it's nice, it's brave and it's honest in its depiction because for the most part, that's how it happens, guys. I mean,
you're not putting a softie in there.
Thumbing in a softie. That's not how that works. So, it makes sense. And it's the only other one that we've covered thus far since, obviously, Under the Skin. Because, Under the Skin, it made sense. He had a bit of a stoner.
Yeah.
And then he fell into the black abyss. In this I did like it, and it's in keeping within the kind of tone and style of the film as well. So I appreciate it for that. Anyway, ratings of the film, I think
5.
I gave it 5 stars as well.
It's so refreshing, especially for people like us. You've seen this film before, but for someone people like us who've seen, you feel like you've seen so many movies, and because it's our joy, it's a hobby, it's something that we like to do in our free time. I love watching films. I love going to cinema. I want to eat it all up. I want to see everything. I love watching movies, and to find something
The
new,
CinemaCron, we'll call you.
I'm gonna eat it up.
You're just like, yum, yum, yum.
CinemaCron. That's cool. I like that. I'm gonna put that on my Letterboxd bio. Nerd. But I love when you see something new that you've never seen before that just blows your brains. It's so interesting and dynamic and fun and fucked up and kind of gives you or me most of the things that I like to see in a film. And it was really horrible and heartwarming in a horrible way that you don't get often. And I enjoyed it so much. So much. And it's not that long. That is wonderful. So 5 stars. I would watch this again. I love this movie.
It is 2 hours long, so I would say it is long.
It doesn't feel long?
It doesn't feel long because it's actually interesting. That's the difference. But yes, I would also, I give it 5 stars. It's, I guess like as a contrast to you, that I think it's a terrifying film, set in a very scary part of Glasgow. And it reminds me a little too much of how scary home is sometimes. And growing up in Scotland, because people are pretty scary there, but like you say, I think there's a real human element that maintains there, that kind of that kind of gets itself out of the shadow of the industry, like the industrial structures that kind of pervade the landscape in the film as well. So there's a real, I don't know. I think the first time I saw it, I maybe didn't appreciate it as much, but now obviously I think it's, I do really enjoy it, and I do think it's very well written, very well casted film. And when certainly you tell me about the restrictions that were put on it, creative restrictions in inverted commas, it does kind of make me think that it's quite miraculous that the film turned out as good as it did. So,
in different hands, it could have been a complete disaster.
Yeah.
But she was able to construct such a fascinating story and shoot it so well within those restrictions that were given.
Yeah.
And just tease you like crazy the whole way. But you don't even feel teased. You just are wanting to know more. And it is suspenseful and pretty freaking thrilling, really.
Yeah.
It is shocking.
Yeah.
It was genuinely shocking for me, and I loved it.
Yeah. Thumbs up all around.
Well, great. I'm glad. Now we can finish up.
We can end this thing.
You guys, I hope you enjoyed this movie as much as we did. Loved it. Coming to you from the Broomfield pub.
Ugh. It's like carpets and it's sticky.
I've been Laura.
Ryan.
And I'll be watching you on the CCTV cameras.
Pervo.